What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're jumping in with a quick video on how to acquire the Choir of One, which of course is the new exotic auto rifle which is dropped as part of the Echoes episode. So now that Act 3 is available, we can get access to the new exotic, and to have a quick look at it, it has Fanatical Lance as the trait, and rapid final blows cause targets to explode in a pool of radiolarian fluid, and hip firing launches multiple projectiles at once in a slower moving spread pattern, and projectiles detonate upon impact. On top of that, it has Command Frame, where it fires extended range, heavy caliber projectiles at a reduced rate of fire, but it deals increased precision damage when aiming down sights. So in ADSing with the thing, it does fire pretty slow, puts out some good damage though. Then of course, when we hip fire, we do get these larger projectiles that absolutely destroy enemies, as we can see, although it absolutely nukes your special ammo, it is safe to say. And after acquiring the initial exotic unlock, I believe by completing the hard version of the new exotic mission, we'll start getting access to some of the catalysts, but this video is for the initial unlock. And so now that Act 3 is live, essentially, we go and speak to Failsafe, and she'll give us the story quest steps to begin with. But at the same time, we immediately get access to the new exotic mission. Now, this is a pretty significant space, and it's certainly easy to get lost, so while a video guide, of course, may be a bit helpful, there will definitely be a component of actually getting in the game and sort of getting to grips with the various spaces inside of this exotic mission. Now, in terms of the general route that we take, there are actually a few different routes that you might attempt to take on your first run. Not all of them actually lead anywhere yet. I believe we're going to find quite a few secrets, hidden areas, and of course the exotic catalyst upgrades in subsequent runs and in future weeks, so keep that in mind. But when we first spawn into the mission, on the right hand side you'll see this large sort of stone building, and there's an almost ramp that goes up. And if we head up there, when we get towards the top, there's a giant sphere down below, and we're able to actually dive into the first zone. Now this area has some pretty significant Whisper vibes, and on the most part we just kind of follow the route through the zone. There are a couple of trickier areas though, with these kind of elevators or lifts that we need to use in some spots. Again, without doing a step-by-step where do you go style video, there will be an element of trial and error, but to get out of this first zone, when you're at the section where you can see, I believe, 5 different lifts in front of us, if we head up the one in the middle, after you pass this little room that's illuminated red, if we drop down and turn to the right, there'll be an entrance which is illuminated purple. That's the route that you're going to want to take here, as otherwise it will keep throwing you back out into the abyss and killing you. So that's the kind of general route that we need to take, and then we'll get into the first combat zone. And this is where we're introduced to the mechanic for this mission, and we'll be using this mechanic throughout the mission, where we need to retrieve Vex modules to form a connection. My friend Johnny likened this to the game Portal, if you guys have played that. I actually don't have a ton of experience with that, but essentially, whenever you pick up a Vex module or retrieve it, it will then need to be installed into a corresponding module to form a connection. Now there are 3 different colors that we encounter throughout the mission. For the initial run, I believe, we only actually use the green and blue modules. So if you pick up a green module, it will need to be installed into a green node. If you pick up a blue one, it'll have to be installed into a blue node, and so on. But essentially, through the various different rooms, we'll retrieve and install modules, and that will open up different pathways. And this is where there certainly is a bit of trial and error involved, at least until you've done a couple of runs of the mission. But essentially, the goal is to continue retrieving and installing the corresponding modules in the different zones. And then we'll come to a section right here, which is called Additum. And upon collecting a green module in this zone, it will actually start a marked for deletion process, which essentially will chase us through a section of the mission. So once you see the notification marked for deletion, essentially keep running. I wouldn't even bother killing the enemies in this zone, as once we get through the kind of maze, we'll be safe again. So that's another mechanic to be aware of. And otherwise, it is a fairly linear mission. So every time you encounter a module that you can collect, that's going to allow us to progress to the next zone. Sometimes the modules can be picked up off the ground or on these kind of Vex nodes. Other times, they'll actually drop from Minotaur enemies. But eventually, we'll encounter the first boss, which is Exonios, pledged to Eurox. So this is a dread enemy right here. And in this boss fight, the health of the boss is actually gated, so we'll need to do 1/3 of the boss's damage. And then again, we'll use the same kind of Vex module mechanic to progress to the next section of the fight. And we continue through that process until we're able to kill the boss. Although halfway through the fight, it will spawn a secondary boss, which is a Tormentor. And as you can see from the health bar, it's referring to both of the bosses with 1 health bar, which is interesting. But ultimately, we're able to take them down and then continue exploring through the mission. Then we'll come upon a section called the Ishtar Research Facility. You'll notice that there's a proximity sensor notification here, and on the left-hand side, as soon as you spawn in, there's a dead exo that we can interact with, which will actually give us access to the new Nessus research quest for Failsafe. So this exotic mission is sort of integrating with the Echo's content and the story stuff. But after the dialogue in this room is completed, we'll come to a final boss room, at least for the normal initial run. And this time there's a Hydra boss, but again, firstly, we have to play around with the Vex modules to access the portal that's required. So again, continue picking up the modules, dunking them with the corresponding color. Like I said, there may be some trial and error involved here, as there are so many different routes to take through this mission that this video would ultimately end up being like 20 or 30 minutes long to explain all of them. But it's kind of set up in a way where, while it might take a little while to find the correct route or the correct modules to dunk, you almost can't fail it. It just requires a little bit of time investment. But once we've defeated this boss, the Choral Mind, that will be the completion of the normal version of the exotic mission, which will drop the Choir of One. And from there, we can of course go and view it on the crafting table, upgrade the weapon, and things like that. But, like I said, in order to earn the catalyst, I think that is going to require the hard version of the mission. For the moment though, that is essentially the initiation of the basics of how this exotic mission works, so hopefully those pointers will help if you're heading in for the first time. I'll keep you guys posted with a separate video on catalyst upgrades and the weekly quests. There will be 3 weeks that we'll need to head into this mission in order to get all of the different upgrades, so for the next 2 resets after this one, we'll be able to get more of the catalysts. And of course there is a subsistence refit, an onslaught refit, and a destabilizing rounds refit, which will definitely be pretty juicy on this thing. So I'll keep you posted on those in the future, but hopefully that quick breakdown on how the exotic mission works in terms of the basics has been useful, and if it has, a rating below really does help us out. Also be sure to get subscribed to the channel, and I'll keep you posted with more Destiny content. But otherwise, I appreciate you tuning in, and I hope you guys have an awesome day.